So, hello students, welcome to lecture 3 of this video lecture series. And in this lecture, what we are going to study, actually, in the last two lectures, I've already told you, last 2-3 lectures, I've already told you about the introduction to VLSI technology. So, from today's lecture, we will be starting the introduction to CMOS, that is your first unit of syllabus. Fine. So, actually, you are studying your syllabus from today's lecture. Fine. So, first what we'll study the introduction to CMOS. Fine. And basics of CMOS, actually basics of CMOS, which you have already studied in your second year course. Fine. Electronic devices and circuit, or maybe electronics 1 or electronic 2 courses. Fine. So I'll just introduce the basics of CMOS, then we'll go deeper into the CMOS. Fine. Step by step we'll do the things, then we'll go deeper into the basics of CMOS. Fine. And so we'll go step by step. First what we'll do, I'll introduce the basics of CMOS. Fine. Because you people have already studied in your electronic device and circuit, but still you need basics. Fine. So what I'll do in today's lecture, I'll just revise the basics of NMOS and PMOS. Fine. And then we'll study from the next lecture a little deeper into the CMOS. Fine. So you have already studied the PMOS and NMOS, but in VLSI you will be studying the same in the first unit, the PMOS and NMOS, but in a different way. Fine. In my course, you will be studying the PMOS and NMOS as a solid state device. Fine. As a solid state device, so that will have more clear concepts of the device. Fine. And then, because VLSI VLSI means CMOS design. Fine. So you need to have a clear understanding of CMOS. Fine. So for that purpose, what I'll do, we'll go very deep into the CMOS, but in today's class we'll just have a introduction of CMOS, the structure, the working, and all this. Fine. So we'll go, so let's start it. Fine. So we'll starting it. So let's start today's class. Fine. So let's move forward. This is the CMOS transistor. I'll be telling about the CMOS transistor, starting from the first IC when it is fabricated till today. The CMOS has been the potential candidate for integrated circuit design. Potential candidate, you understand? The only candidate, the only device which is used for CMOS fabrication. And I would like to tell you one more thing. All the digital designs, like which are based on logic gates, they can be designed using CMOS. I have already told you. In today's lecture also I'll show you some examples. Fine. Apart from that, the analog design such as diode based circuits and the circuits having resistance, the capacitance, the passive elements, they can also be designed using just CMOS. Your diode can be designed using CMOS. Your diodes on the IC can be designed using CMOS. Your capacitance can be designed using CMOS. Fine. So by only using CMOS, the entire IC can be designed. All the circuits on the IC can be designed. Not only digital circuits, various analog circuits also can be designed using CMOS. Fine. That's why the CMOS has remained the potential candidate from the 1970 when the first IC was designed till today. The CMOS has remained the potential candidate for integrated circuit design. Fine. So let's see what are its unique properties. Why the CMOS is a potential candidate for the IC design. There's a reason for that. Let's see. The first reason is low power dissipation. Fine. Low power dissipation. Everybody wants that it's the IC which is fitted into a system like your desktops, your mobile. Fine. Your mobile, your desktops should work on a battery for at least 1 or 2 days. It should not discharge within 1 hour. Everybody wants that. So for providing such thing, what you want the IC which are fitted in your device should be of as low power, should consume as low power as possible. Fine. So CMOS based IC consume very low power. Fine, CMOS based ICs consume very low power. This is the reason why this is one of the reason why CMOS is preferred in the CMOS is preferred in the IC design. One of the thing is low power dissipation as compared to other transistors. Fine. Then short propagation delay. Short propagation delay means when you give input to a CMOS and when output is output can be seen at the terminals of the output terminals of the CMOS, the time duration between those two things, it's very low. Fine, as compared to other devices like BJT and all. So it is having short propagation delays, that means it is faster. Fine. Third thing is high noise immunity. Although we'll understand more about the noise immunity, what is noise immunity, but let me tell you what happened in the digital CMOS design when you are designing the logic gates using CMOS. So the peculiar thing which you are using is the switching property of CMOS, that the CMOS can be turned on or can be turned off. Fine. So switching property you are using in logic gates. Fine. What happens, the input gate voltage, I'll let you know what is gate, source and drain. I'll again revise in today's class, but let me make it very clear what is noise immunity. The input voltage which is applied at the gate, the input voltage which is applied at the gate of either NMOS or PMOS, they have some threshold that after this voltage, see, if you are applying the voltage 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, so there is some threshold that after this voltage the CMOS will become on or the CMOS will become off. There is some threshold. Fine. But in case of other transistor like BJT, the threshold is very low. If the threshold is very low, then what will happen? A smaller amount of voltage, which may be a noise. Fine, because your integrated circuit, please listen it carefully, your integrated circuits consist of millions of transistors. So what may happen, due to millions of transistors, a voltage which is applied to a nearby transistor can be coupled to the gate of other transistor. So what will happen, that particular voltage may affect the gate voltage of next transistor, and if the gate voltage of next transistor increases, that transistor, that CMOS may become on and off anonymously, undesirably. Fine. So that is known as noise. But in case of CMOS, what happens? In case of CMOS, the amount of threshold voltage which is required, threshold voltage, I'll make it clear what is threshold voltage, but as of now you should understand that the amount of threshold voltage which is required to turn the device on and off is very high, and because of this we can call that noise immunity of CMOS is very high. That means whatever noise which is appearing at the input of CMOS will not affect the device. Fine. So it has high noise immunity. This is one of the reason why CMOS is used in IC. Then full voltage swing. You know what is full voltage swing? What happens? You might have all studied BJT. Fine. So what happens when you use a BJT? Just take an example. We'll quickly take an example, then only you can understand the difference between BJT based circuits and CMOS based circuits. That is important for you. So let us take an example. You have a BJT, something like this. Fine. Then you have a collector here and a collector resistance. Then you have a base. Fine. If you are applying some input at the base, fine, some varying input at the base, let's say sinusoidal, you are applying sinusoidal. Fine. You are applying sinusoidal input. Fine. So you have given input voltage VDD here. What is this? This is DC voltage, and you apply AC at the base terminal. Now this is the point from where you take the output voltage, amplified or maybe unamplified or whatever kind of, I don't know what circuit is this, but you are just taking the output from the this terminal. So what happens when you obtain the output? Maybe it's amplified output, so the output comes something like this. But what happens when you are operating this BJT in a particular biasing mode? Did you remember the biasing modes? the collector bias, the collector base bias, the emitter bias, the voltage divider bias. When you are operating in a particular biasing and in a varying environment, what happens? The question point, Q point, if you remember in your electronic courses, the Q point changes, and because of the change in Q point, you won't get a the exact sinusoidal waveform or exact varying waveform at the output. What happens? The exact waveform is something like this. It goes something like this. It may clip at its peak, then it goes down, and then again it may clip at its peak. It may happen, or it may clip at the negative voltage. It may also happen. You will never get a full swing of the output. This will happen. This you might have also seen in your electronic labs in your second year. Fine. So with a BJT or with any other transistors, the output voltage is not a full swing. It does not have a full swing. But in case of CMOS, there is no such thing. We'll see in next slides that why the CMOS supports full voltage swing. The exact voltage which you are applying, the same voltage swing will be available at the output. Why we call it as a full voltage swing? Because full voltage swing means if you are giving it as minus 5 volt to plus 5 volt. So in the output also you are getting from lowest voltage, that is minus 5, to highest voltage, that is plus 5. Fine. That's why we called it as full voltage swing. So with CMOS you are getting full voltage swing. Then the fourth point, look at the fourth point. It's not visible to you, just a second. So the fourth point, look at the fourth point. Yeah, fourth point is ability for fabrication at lower technology nodes. Fine. CMOS, as I've already told you, they can be scaled down, scaled down to 22 nanometer. We have seen the design. I have seen the design of CMOS at up till 22 nanometer. Fine. So it can be scaled very easily. However, the same thing cannot be done with other transistors. They have their limitation. If they would be scaled like BJT, they would be scaled, it would stop working. It would stop working as a transistor. That may happen because there are a number of constraints. You might have studied in your courses that the collector should be of this much size, the base should be of this much size, is this much width. There are constraints, but in case of CMOS, if you scale everything, the size of gate, the size of source, the size of drain, it will remain working as a perfect CMOS. Fine. So we'll see all these things. If you wanted to see, we will again see this working of CMOS. I'll explain the working of NMOS and PMOS clearly. So we'll again come to this slide. But let's move forward. Let's come to the basics. That is very important, because if you miss the basics, you won't be able to understand the things which needs a higher thinking. So we'll understand the basics starting from the silicon. Because we will be using silicon or germanium. Fine. We are using two types of semiconductors, silicon or germanium, for building our CMOS design. Fine. Why we are using semiconductors? Because semiconductor has a very good property that we may make it as a conductor, perfect conductor, when the user require, and we may make it as an insulator when we require. So depending upon our requirement, we can make the silicon as a perfect conductor or a insulator. That's why it is known as semiconductor. It conducts or it may not conduct, depending upon various parameters. Fine. Depending upon various parameters. So look at the lattice or the structure of the silicon material. How is the silicon material is? See, this is the lattice of the silicon material. Every silicon atom, since silicon comes into the group 4 of your periodic table, since it comes in the group 4 of periodic table, that means it has a valency of 4. Valency of 4 means every silicon atom has 4 valence atom. What is valence atom? You should know the basics. Valence atom means the number of electrons present in the outer orbit of an atom. That is the valency. Fine. So I'm repeating. Most of the you students definitely know these things, but why I'm repeating? Because there should not be a single student in the batch who may not understand, who may miss a single concept. then it would be difficult for them. Fine. So I'm repeating the things. So silicon have 4 valence electrons, and because of 4 valence electrons it makes a covalent bond with a nearby silicon atom. Fine. So it makes a covalent bond with a nearby silicon atom. Every silicon atoms make a covalent bond with a nearby silicon atoms. Fine. You look this, these are what? Covalent atoms. What happens if you might have studied in your chemistry courses in 12th, please remember, because these are basics. What happens if you give energy to this silicon material? What kind of energy? Any energy. Heating energy, electrical energy, energy by beating the device, that is also energy. So what will happen then? If you transfer energy in any form, if you transfer energy, that energy will go deeper up to the atom level, and that will break the covalent bond. Because these covalent bonds break, if you remember in your chemistry classes, this covalent bond breaks. When it breaks? When you give energy. What kind of energy? Any energy. Not only electrical, because you will study electrical in this course, but you can give any type of energy. Fine. If you give heat energy also, then also these covalent bonds will break. And what will happen in that case? The electrons which are making this covalent bond, they will become free. The electrons will become free. And what happens when the electrons are free? They are free to move. Fine. Here and there. So when you apply a particular voltage, these electrons will move and it will conduct current. So now your semiconductor will start behaving like a conductor. You got it? So this is how you make your semiconductor to conduct. Fine. So this is the lattice of semiconductor. Let's move forward. Now how you make your semiconductor p-type and n-type? Why you call it as p-type and n-type? Because let's see what happens. You have your semiconductor something like this. Let's erase all these things, just a second. Yeah, so this is your silicon lattice. Fine, this is your silicon lattice, but your silicon lattice currently, let us say it is on 300 degree Kelvin, a room temperature. Fine, none of the silicon bond has been broken. Now what if you apply a voltage? This, let us consider this is a silicon wafer. Fine, now you apply a voltage something like this, positive, negative. A battery is connected here. Now what will happen? Will the current will be flowing in the circuit? No. Why? Because there are no free electrons in the silicon lattice, so the current will not move. Now how to make what I've told you? You can make it as a conductor. By what means? By giving the energy to it. So you may give energy in many ways, by heat energy, sun energy, or electrical energy also. Fine. How to give the electrical energy? Let's see. And electrical energy by applying the voltage across it. Fine. So these are the many ways by how you give the energy to it, so that the covalent bond may break. There are some other ways. Apart from giving energy. There are some other ways where you can break the bond and get the free electrons. Fine. So let's see those ways. What you do, you have some more material like group 5 material. You have group 5 material. What is group 5 material? Group 5 material have valency of 5. It's very simple. Group 3 material has a valency of 3. So what happens? Let's see one by one. Let's take group 5 material. Group 5 material is what? Group 5 material has a valency of 5. Fine. So when you mix the group 5 material like arsenic, let us say arsenic. Fine. Arsenic is how much valency? 5 valency. That means it has 5 electrons in its outer orbit. Fine. It has 5 electrons in its outermost orbit. What happens when you mix a single atom? Let us take a single atom at a time. When you mix a single atom of arsenic into the silicon, what will happen? The valency of silicon is 4. So 4 of the let us say this is the arsenic atom which we have added into this silicon. So the 4 of the electrons has made bond with the silicon. 4 of the valence electron of arsenic has made bonding with this silicon, and what remains? It remains a single electron. A single electron remains here, which has yet not bonded with any of the material of the silicon. I have to repeat one thing here. Arsenic has only 3 valency. Boron has 5 valency. So I am doing things in a wrong figure. Just give me a second. I will erase all these things. We'll start again. We'll start the thing and again. Boron has, just a second. Boron has 5 valency. Arsenic has valency of 3. Just a second. I'll repeat it again. So let us take boron. Boron has how much valency? Boron has 5 valency. So that means it has 4 electrons in its outermost orbit. So this is the boron. Fine. So what you have done, you have mixed the boron with the silicon lattice. So this boron has made the covalent bond. How many covalent bond will it make? It will make 4 covalent bond. Why only 4? Because silicon has 4 valency. So 4 covalent bonds are made. 1 electron will be free. 1 electron of pentavalent impurity. What are these? What are these? These are pentavalent impurities. What are different pentavalent impurities? Carbon, phosphorus, and here boron. These are pentavalent impurities. So when pentavalent impurity is mixed with the silicon, a free electron will occur. Each atom of pentavalent impurity, a free electron will occur. That free electron can be used for the purpose of conduction. Now what will happen? Now if you take this as a silicon lattice and you apply an external voltage to it, now what will happen? Now it will conduct. Why? Because you have a free electron here, so it will conduct like this. Your electrons will move like this and your current will move in the opposite direction. You all know those things. So this is the way how you make your silicon as n-type. Now you call your silicon lattice as n-type. Why? Because there are more number of electrons as compared to holes. That's why you call it as n-type silicon. Fine. Opposite is the case when you put the trivalent impurity. When you put the trivalent impurity, in that case what will happen? Your silicon will make only 3 covalent atoms, covalent bonds, only 3 covalent bonds, and one of the electron of extra silicon, one of the electrons of this extra silicon will not be able to make the bond. So a hole will be there, something like this. When you have a let's say this kind of atom, so it will make a covalent bond like this, like this, like this, but it won't be able to make one more covalent bond. So this silicon bond is empty. A electron is here. Look here, a electron is here which is bonded to silicon, which is still bonded to silicon, which is not free. Please understand this, which is not free. So an extra electron is there which is tightly bonded to silicon, but in this bond is partial bond because a hole has been created here. Look at this more clearly. This bond is something like this. This is the electron of silicon and a hole has been created here. Hole means there is a possibility of coming electron. A electron may come here. That means hole. Absence that you have studied in electronic courses. Fine. Absence of electron is known as hole. So there is a possibility that while conduction, a electron can come here. This is known as hole, and that type of silicon is known as p-type. Why p-type? Because there is more number of holes as compared to electrons. Fine. This is how you make p-type and n-type silicon. Fine. You should revise. If you are still confused in say p-type and n-type devices, you should revise this. Otherwise it may be clear from this PPT. Let's move forward. How you make anode and cathode, how you make a p-n junction. You all have studied this. How you make p-n junction. If this is a p-type material, this is an n-type material, what happens when you join p-type and n-type material, what happens? The holes in the p-type combines with the electrons in the n-type, and what happens then? If, see, this is a covalent bond where you have an electron and a hole here, which is not complete. This is not a complete bond. So what will happen when electrons come here? When electrons come here, because n-type has majority of electrons, so what happens when when electrons come here? That covalent bond becomes complete. This covalent bond becomes complete. Now what will remain? There remains the ions. There remains the ions which contribute electrons or holes. So there is a depletion layer. What is this depletion layer? This depletion layer consists of no charge carriers. There are no charge carriers here. There are only depleted ions. Ions which have contributed for completing this covalent bond, which was incomplete. Now what is this layer consist of? This layer will consist of immovable ions. You call it as a depletion layer. What is depletion? Depletion means there is no charge carriers. That means depletion. Fine. So this is how this p-n junction is made. You can make a diode with this. How to make it as a diode? When you apply a particular polarity of voltage here, then what will happen? It will create an electric field. It will create an electric field, and it pushes this depletion layer. This depletion layer will move, and your electron will flow in this direction, and your current will flow in this direction. You all know these things. Fine. These are basics. I'm just revising it. This is how you make the p-n junction. Let's move forward. Let's quickly jump to the NMOS transistors. Fine. So what are NMOS transistors? NMOS transistors are let us consider what is NMOS. Fine. How to make a NMOS? So you start from a p-type substrate. This is a p-type substrate. Just a second. Yeah, this is a p-type substrate. You take a p-type substrate. What is p-type substrate? A silicon which is doped with pentavalent impurity, so it became p. Fine. P means it has majority charge carriers as holes. Then you take this much amount of area as heavily n-type. That means it is doped with pentavalent impurity, so it became n-type. And this is p-type. It is doped with trivalent impurity. I'm sorry. So it is doped with trivalent impurity. So this is p-type, and this is n-type. Fine. N-type within p-type. Remember, n-type within p-type. And then you purposely remove some area, or you purposely leave some area here between these two areas. You purposely leave some area. Fine. So what will happen then? When you purposely leave this area will be of opposite type, exactly opposite type. Let's see how. This area, this is of n-type, this is of n-type, and what type it is? This area, this complete area, this area is of p-type. This area will remain p-type. Fine. So what will happen? There is a p-n junction. That's why I have taken one side of p-n junction. There is a p-n junction here. There is a p-n junction here. Fine. Now what happens now? What we now let us understand the terminologies. What are these terminals called? This terminal, one of the terminal, these are the two terminals. One of the terminal will be known as source, and one of the terminal will be known as gate. Why they are named as source and drain, I'll let you know. They are bilateral, so one can be called as source and one can be called as drain, and they can be exchanged. Another one can be called as drain, and then it can be called as source. Fine. So let us consider this as a source and this is a drain. This is gate. So what we do, the area which we have purposely left, this area which we have purposely left, this much area, this area, in this area there are majority charge carriers as whole. Fine. So what we do, above this area, just above this area, we will do oxidation. I have taught you in the last class in the IC fabrication. We will do oxidation, and due to oxidation, what will happen? Silicon oxide will be appearing just after that surface. Fine. So you have a small layer of silicon oxide. What is silicon oxide? It is a perfect insulator. Fine. Current will not pass through this material. This is a perfect insulator. Then upon that you make a layer of metal or polysilicon. You can take polysilicon. I have told you in the last class what is polysilicon. It is a good conductor. Fine. So you take a polysilicon. Then what you do? You call this terminal as gate terminal. You call this terminal as gate terminal. Fine. Please don't consider this. Drain is this. This is source, and you consider this terminal as gate terminal. Fine. Let us see how this works. Let us apply a voltage here. Let us apply a voltage here. Positive and negative terminal. Positive and negative. What is this? A particular voltage supply. Now what will happen? There is a negative electric field here, positive electric field here. When you apply an electric field in a particular area, when you apply electric field, what will happen? What will happen when you apply a particular electric field? See, you have applied a particular electric field. From source to drain. Fine. So the direction of electric field is like this. Fine. The direction of electric field is like this from source to drain. Fine. Now, will there be any flow of current? Will there be any flow of current? Let's see. Let's just check. This is N-type material and this is P-type material. So what will happen? It will form a PN junction. Fine. Let's see the PN junction. This is like this. No, just opposite of this. This is like this. P-type is here and N-type is here. So how you make a diode? Like this. So this is how a diode is formed between N-type source and P-type substrate. What happens when you apply a positive electric field to it? You are applying a positive voltage to the negative terminal, that is the cathode of the diode. Look clearly. You are applying a positive voltage at the cathode of the diode. This is cathode, na? Negative terminal. It is forming like a diode. Fine. So what will happen? Will it conduct or not conduct? In a PN junction or in a diode, when you apply a positive voltage at the N-type, it will become reverse bias. It is known as reverse bias, so it won't conduct. And similar is the condition at the drain, so it won't conduct. Fine. So some student may say, sir, what we'll do? What we can do? We will reverse the terminal. Let's see. We will reverse the terminal. What will happen then? We'll reverse the terminal. Let's see then whether it will conduct or not. What we'll do? What I'm trying to say. Let's see. We will reverse the terminal. Initially we have given positive voltage at the source, but now we will give the positive voltage at the drain. So a positive voltage will appear here, but the case is same. This is N-type, so your diode which is forming here is something like this. Again you are giving positive voltage to N-type terminal, it won't conduct. So independent of the polarity of voltage which you are giving between source and drain terminals, it won't conduct. The current won't conduct through it. Now what you do? You wanted to conduct current through a transistor. What you do? You have a gate terminal here. Fine. But that gate terminal, remember, is insulated. That's why it is known as CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. Complementary metal oxide. I'll let you know what is complementary metal oxide. Metal oxide means metal. This is we have used a polysilicon. We may use a metal. Initially, people uses metal in this. Fine. So you have a metal, then an oxide layer, and then silicon. That's why we call it as MOS, metal oxide semiconductor. Metal oxide semiconductor. Fine. So you have a gate terminal here. You apply a positive voltage here. Fine. What type of voltage you apply here? A positive voltage. So you connect this terminal. I'm erasing some of the things. Just a second. So what you do? You apply. You connect this terminal here. Just connect this terminal here. Now what will happen? This become positive. This is positive electric field. Fine. Because of this positive electric field, this is what P type. Fine. What will happen because of this positive electric field? The holes, it has majority charge carriers as holes. This has majority charge carriers as holes. So what will happen to these holes? These holes will be repelled. Why? Because similar charges repel each other. You all have studied this. So positive voltage will repel holes. Positive voltage will repel holes. Keep on repelling holes. Now will it conduct? No, because for conduction, for the purpose of conduction, what should be here? There should be electrons. Then only a layer will be formed. Then only a path will be formed. This is also electrons. This is full of electrons. This is anti. This should also have electrons. Then only it will make conduction. Fine. Currently, does it have electrons? No. It has holes which are repelled towards downwards. Fine. So it won't conduct. Till now, it won't conduct. Now let's move forward. We are applying more positive voltage. That's why we will take a different battery here, a varying battery. We'll take a different battery. Let's take a different battery. So what we'll do? We'll take a battery which is common to source. Fine. This battery is varying. This voltage is varying. Now let us increase the gate voltage. What will happen? When we increase the gate voltage, this is a P type. So what will happen? The holes which are majority carriers in P type, they will be repelled towards down. Now in a silicon or in a semiconductor, what are the two types of charge carriers which are present? Majority charge carriers and minority charge carriers. So majority charge carriers in P type is holes, and what are the minority charge carriers? Minority charge carriers are electrons. So when it is repelled, so what is left behind? Left behind are electrons. So electrons are left behind. So when you put higher gate voltage, the electrons will be left behind, and a layer of electrons will be made between the n-type source and n-type drain. A layer of electrons are formed, and when you apply voltage between source and drain, since already there is a layer of electrons, so this layer of electron will help in conduction of current like this. Let's see this clearly in one of the animation. I have an animation. With that animation, it might be more clear to you. Fine. So let's see that animation. Yeah, I think you are able to see this animation. Let's see this animation. What is happening here? Look very closely. Once you look this, once you are able to understand the basics of operation of CMOS, it would be very helpful. Fine. So what is happening here? What you have done? You have applied a voltage. This is a NMOS. How do I know from this animation whether it's a NMOS or PMOS? Because if you see, the electrons are moving. This negative green color dots, the negative sign is there, so electrons are moving, and when electrons move in NMOS, and in case of PMOS, holes are moving. Fine. So electrons are moving, that means it's a NMOS. So what is happening here? When you are applying the gate voltage, let's pause this for a second. Yeah. So when you are applying the gate voltage, this positive, what does it mean? This is gate oxide. Fine. This is silicon oxide. So can silicon oxide conduct? No, it is not conducting. So on an insulator you can put an electric field, but you cannot make it conduct. So what you are doing? You are putting a positive electric field. Fine. You are putting a positive electric field, and because of this positive electric field, the electrons, minority charge carriers electrons which are present in p-type substrate, they are attracted and they appears at the surface. Fine. And then when you put a voltage through a resistor is used through a resistor, then it will make it conduct. It will make it conduct. Fine. So this is how the operation of NMOS takes place. Let us again see with the help of animation. So let's see if you can see. Yeah. So it is moving here through here. See, gate voltage, you are applying the gate voltage, increasing the gate voltage. Keep on increasing the gate voltage. If you keep on increasing the gate voltage, more and more electrons will appear here. Fine. And these electrons, just a single electron, then you increase the gate voltage, there would be more electrons. Let's see. Yeah, you increase the gate voltage, there are 2 electrons, then you increase more gate voltage. Yeah, then there are more electrons. So as you keep on increasing the gate voltage, more number of electrons will appear just below the silicon oxide, and that will help in conduction between source and drain. Fine. So these electrons will keep on increasing the depending upon the gate voltage. There is a limitation. Fine. There is a limitation on the gate voltage, how much amount of gate voltage that you can apply. I will take the help of a graph to explain that. Fine. So this is how your NMOS works. And this particular area, just a second, this particular area is known as the channel. What you call this? You call it as a channel. Fine. You call it as a channel between source and drain. Fine. So this is your channel. Let's move forward. We'll see PMOS also. So this was NMOS. Similarly is the conduction for PMOS. So just see. Let's see. So this is how the conduction of NMOS takes place. This is how the NMOS operates. Fine. You remember the terminology: source, drain, gate, the p-type substrate, and a channel which is formed beneath the silicon oxide. How the channel is formed, I've already told you. Let us take the PMOS. PMOS just opposite to NMOS. Fine. PMOS, the source and drain. The source and drain are made of they are made of p-type semiconductor. Fine. And the gate, what kind of voltage we'll apply at the gate? We'll apply just opposite. In the NMOS we are applying the positive voltage so that the electron may appear in the channel, but in this case we will apply the negative voltage. Fine. We will apply the negative voltage. Because of this, what will happen? Because of this, there is negative electric field here. Negative electric field will oppose the electrons, because electrons are the majority charge carriers. They will oppose, and what remains behind? The minority charge carriers. What is minority charge carriers and n-type? It is holes. The holes are remaining here, and these holes will contribute to conduction of current between source and drain. This is how the operation of PMOS takes place. It's very easy. Fine. So how to use them in logic circuits? That is important. How to use them in logic circuits? See, in an NMOS, what happens in an NMOS? When you apply the gate voltage as 0, fine, gate voltage is 0, that means in an NMOS, when you apply the gate voltage as 0, that means there is no gate voltage applied. That means there is no channel, and since there is no channel, there is no conduction between drain and source. So it will remain off. There is no conduction. Similarly, when you apply the gate voltage equal to 1, this is logic 1. This is not 1 volt, 2 volt. This is logic 1. Logic 1 can be 5 volt also, can be 12 volt also. So logic 1 means the channel is formed, and because the channel is formed, so it will conduct. It will become on. It will work like a short circuit. Right? Similarly is the case for PMOS. For PMOS, it is just opposite. When you apply gate voltage equal to 0, what will happen? When you apply the gate voltage as 0, that means you are applying a voltage towards negative. So in a PMOS, to operate, you have to apply a negative voltage. I have already told you. So what you are doing, you are applying a voltage little negative. Fine, a lower voltage. And when you apply a lower voltage, the channel will be formed in a PMOS, and where PMOS will become on. So you just simply remember something like this: when you apply a gate voltage equal to 0, the PMOS will become on. and when you apply a higher gate voltage, a positive gate voltage, your PMOS will become off. And on this principle, your inverter, the CMOS inverter is made. Let's see. This is what we have already done in lab. I'll just revisit it. So how you make an inverter? You connect a PMOS here, you connect a PMOS here and an NMOS here. So this is, just remember, this is the source of PMOS, this is the drain of PMOS, this is the drain of NMOS, this is the source of NMOS. The gate of both NMOS and PMOS are connected together. Fine. Now you apply the input here. Let's say let me apply the logic 0. Logic 0, that means a lower voltage. Fine. A lower voltage will not turn on the NMOS. We all know this, because a lower voltage will not be able to form any channel below the silicon oxide of NMOS. So NMOS will be off, but your PMOS will become on. When your PMOS will become on, that means it will behave like a short circuit. So your output terminal is connected to the output terminal is connected to the supply, full voltage supply. So what will occur at the output? What will appear at the output? VDD will appear at the output. That means logic 1. VDD means logic 1. So when you are applying the input 0, you are getting the output 1. It is operating like inverter. Let's look at the opposite thing. When you apply a logic 1 here, what will happen? When you are applying a logic 1, your channel is formed beneath the silicon oxide of NMOS, so your NMOS will become on. This became on, but there will be no channel formed in PMOS, so your PMOS will become off. Now a path has been formed between ground and the output. So what will appear at the output? A ground will appear at the output, because path has been formed here. And what is ground? Ground is logic 0. So on applying logic 1, you are getting output as logic 0. So that means this is acting like an inverter. What I am trying to tell you, that how you can design an inverter using the PMOS and NMOS. Fine. So this was a short introduction to PMOS and NMOS. What is your homework? You can design other logic gates and analyze the operation of these logic gates, similar to this how I have analyzed the inverter. So it's a homework for you people, that you analyze the operation of NAND gate, OR gates and other gates by the same way I have analyzed the inverter. Fine. So this was a short introduction. In the next class we will go deeper into a simple NMOS or a PMOS. Fine. And then we will design the mathematical model. We will mathematically analyze the CMOS. So from the next class we will design the mathematical model of the NMOS or PMOS. Fine. So thank you as of now.